Okay, hello everyone. We're going to be covering Chapter 30, Welding Symbols. This should be in the blueprint course, one of the beginning courses, so you understand how to read the welding symbols, not just the weld symbol, okay? There is a difference. The welding symbols are the components within the weld symbol. So let's break it down. Start off with the objectives. We're in Chapter 30 out of the book. Starts at page 1001. Okay. So the material in this chapter is reprinted courtesy of the AWS. Symbols are included in the latest revision. So what we're mainly focusing on here is the American Welding Society symbols. These are the most accurate ones. There are some ISO symbols out there as well. We will be seeing more of that through the machining book. So we're kind of seeing a couple different views, okay? It's important because there's always more than one way to do things. Draw them. You might be reading prints from manufacturer from another country, whether it be an SI or an English versions, and so forth. Okay, for more detailed reference, there's always the standard symbols for welding, brazing, non-destructive examination, AWS A2.4. Many companies develop their own system of symbols references with AWS as the baseline. Okay, here it states the joint is the basis of reference. So the welded joint indicated by the symbol will have arrow side and another side. We'll break this down here in a second. The use of the tail with the reference line for giving specifications for welding. Mainly the welding processes, type, brand of filler metal, where or where not preheating, chipping, preheating is required, and other information. So real quick, here's the tail. Let me break it down. I'll break it down not just the way on the PowerPoint, but the way I typically teach it, okay? First things first, you have your arrow and you have your leader line. You don't always have a tail, but you almost always have an arrow or leader line, arrow and leader line together. Leader line specifically. If it's a very simple print, maybe there's only one weld, very simple, you're just going to have a leader line that's telling you either arrow side or other side that might spec it's a fillet weld or a groove weld, so forth. Okay. So as we break this down, the reference line is always required, the arrow line is always required. Some shop prints, you're not necessarily going to see them, but as far as testing, the arrow and the reference line are always. You always make sure you draw the arrow line, the reference line horizontally, okay? We'll get into broken arrow lines and so forth later, here in a few minutes. This is where we talked about, when we back up, the tails used, welding processes, type and brand of filler metal, and so forth. So in this case, you might see SMAW 7018, E7018, 1/8 inch. It may just be telling you what filler metal to use. Or it might also send you reference number 1, so forth. Okay? We'll break it down some more. So real quick, you can see here in this, the other side and the arrow side. Okay? So no matter what this is drawn on, if we have a fillet weld and it is on the bottom, it means it's on the arrow side. If it's on the top, it means it's on the other side of the weld joint. Well, what does that mean? Okay? So real quick, let's look into here. It's a good example of this, okay? So if this shows that it's supposed to be a fillet weld, we'll get into the symbol here in a second. Well, because this is groove, it's not telling us. So here's a good example. This is a fillet weld symbol. We're going to do a fillet weld right here, and it's on the bottom like this one. This means it's on the arrow side, so our fillet weld will be on this side. If it shows a fillet weld on the other side, that means you would also put a fillet weld on this side of the T-joint. Okay? So in this case right here, we're going to break these down. So fillet weld, it's always a triangular shaped piece. The left-hand side is always straight, and it's always on the left. This is a V groove, not a single bevel. Single bevel we broke down this direction. And this is a J groove, okay? So the welding symbol is a graphic symbol that indicates a weld required. Has 8 elements: reference line, arrow line. Sorry, let me back this off. Reference line, arrow line, basic welding symbols or weld symbols, dimensions, and other data. Supplementary symbols, finish symbols, tail, other specification. Here are your main welding symbols, or weld symbols, sorry, not welding. The weld symbol is exactly that. What we are concerned with is the individual weld itself. So this little piece right here means it's a V groove weld. If we have an arrow line and a reference line, so for example, this is a welding symbol. However, the fillet is the weld symbol. Okay? Real quick, square groove. So a couple examples I'm going to do. 2 pieces of plate. You put them together, the edges are squared. There's no preparation on them whatsoever. Square groove, square weld on a butt joint. They're butted together, square groove weld. Okay? Scarf. Scarfing is usually when you're mainly going to see this associated with either carbon arc cutting or brazing and soldering. And the reason why is because brazing is extremely helpful in a lot of cases, and it also is very strong. But one of the things that brazing needs to be strong is it needs more surface area than just a small piece. Okay? So if we cut it at a 45-degree angle, we're roughly 1.4 times greater area. So if this is 1 inch, and we cut it at a 45-degree angle, we roughly now have 1.5 inches, pretty close. So more surface area to bond. Better bond this way than there is just this way, okay? So it just gives us more surface area to adhere to help add with strength and fusion. V-groove. V-groove or the bevel. Now, some cases the bevel might just be one piece that's beveled back this way, put in. The V-groove might be both pieces beveled in this direction, okay? U and the J, so you can see if you have 2 members here like this, and they're both prepped, they both have J grooves on them, then it becomes a U joint. Just one, now it's just a single J. Flare V, flare bevel, excuse me. That's very common with round stock. So a round piece of tubing or round stock bar there, and then a piece of flat material here would be a flare bevel, 2 pieces of round stock, flare, V groove, okay? Basic weld symbols as well. We have a fillet weld. Fillet weld is a right triangle shaped weld. The left hand always on the straight side. A plug weld. Plug weld means it's circular. So when we see circular, the reason we know what's the difference between the plug and the slot. Right here, we have a diameter circle symbol. Okay? So if there's a circle with a slash through it, on most blueprints, what this means is diameter. So in this case, we know it's a perfectly circular piece. So now it becomes a plug weld. Versus this one has no diameter symbol. It is a slot weld. Okay, so a slot weld might be 1 inch deep or 1 inch wide by 6 inches long. Okay? Very common in road construction and heavy equipment. Stud weld for fastening things like bolts and so forth. Grading, decking, materials like that. Pipe hangers, racks for conduit and everything else. Alright? Spotter projection. Spotter projection can either be on the arrow side, other side, or it could be right in the center as well. Seam weld, same thing. Center, arrow side or other side. A backer or backing weld. Now here in a few minutes I'm going to explain backer backing, and I'm going to help you understand how you know which one is what. Alright? The surfacing weld is always on the arrow side. You always point to the side you want surfaced. Edge. This will be on an edge piece right there. Okay? So you can see it looks like two pieces stacked like this. You're welding along the edge of the top sides. Alright? Welding symbol. Here's weld all around on the left hand side. Filled weld has the flag. The melt through can be either on the top or the bottom, it depends on what side. Now it looks a lot like a backer and backing symbol as well, correct? But if you notice, this one isn't shaded in. If it's shaded, solid black, that means it's melt through. So in this case, this is a V-groove with an open root weld. We melt through the open root from the top side. Okay? Consumable insert square, backing rectangle. These look an awful lot like a plug and a slot weld, don't they? Okay? This is usually in this case where you're going to look into the tail. The tail will usually tell you consumable insert type 1, 2, whatever. Backing, a lot of times in the backing material it'll either give it to you inside of the rectangle, or it also will tell you in the tail as well. Okay? Contour, finishing surfaces. Flush, flat, convex, or concave. The important thing to think about here is if it's on the arrow side, it's going to be the same shape as the concave on this side. So you remember, you have to think of the center line working out. So if it looks this way, it's going to be convex. If it's going this way, you're working from this side out, it needs to be concave. Okay? It depends on which side of the line you're working from. So let's break down the fillet weld to start with. Okay? If you notice over here, 5/16 arrow side, 5/16 equal leg, 5/16 from here to here, here to here. And the fillet weld is measured by the largest isosceles triangle that will fit within the weld. Okay? So what I mean by that is quite simply this. If I have it and I'm shooting for 5/16, I don't want to make it too perfect. I'll give you an example of a convex and a concave. So here's a concave weld, okay? So our weld size does not come from here to here. Our weld size is measured off of the largest isosceles or right triangle within the center. So our weld size now is actually from here to here. Okay? The same from here. It's not here to here. It is actually from there to there. Convex, on the other hand, the leg and these aren't to scale, but the leg on a convex fillet weld, the leg size is the exact same size as a weld size. Okay, so your leg is measured from the root here to here, and from here to here. Okay, we went through this on chapter 29. Now into 30. All right, so here's another good example on the bottom. Size of an equal double fillet welds. Okay. So, 1/2 inch weld on the arrow side that it's pointing to. 1/2 inch fillet weld on the other side of the weld joint, right there. That's all it means. Okay. All right. Fillet weld length and pitch indications. So if you get a weld symbol that looks like this, okay, we're going to break this down. What in the world does that mean? Okay. Okay. So we know it's a fillet weld on arrow side, fillet weld on the other side. All right. First things first, looking at this, this is the length of our weld. Okay. So it's giving us a weld length, not size. Our size will be over here. So if it says 1/4 inch, we know this is a 1/4 inch from the weld profile from the side. This is the length. 3-inch weld length with a dash 10. So the 10 is your pitch. Okay. Weld length and pitch. So the pitch is always measured from center to center. Okay. In this case, 3, showing these two here. 3 to 3 is 10, 5, 5, so the same thing, 10 inches here to here. Okay? So one thing that we can assume from this as well, let's look at this one. That's 3 here, so we're 1.5 inches here, 1.5 inches here, so that's 3 inches. 3 minus the 10, we know that it's 7 inches in between here then. Okay? This one does a good example. So see how these two fillet welds are staggered? Okay? If they were both aligned right here, this would mean that they're a chain fillet weld. This is what we call a staggered intermittent fillet weld. So in this case, you notice how the welds are staggered from each other. Okay? An intermittent fillet weld would look more like this, or a chain fillet weld, I mean, would look more like this. You would have here and here. Ten inches, 3, 3. Okay, so let's take a look over there. That would see how the left-hand side of our fillet welds are aligned perfectly. That means that it's a chain intermittent weld instead of a fillet intermittent, or a staggered fillet weld, sorry. Okay, weld all around symbol. So this is a really good example of a fillet weld. Instead of having to be in all different places, which it can be, what happens is the easier way to draw this, so it's less confusing, is to say it's a fillet weld on the arrow side, weld all the way around. So this is a typical drawing of what you would see on a skyscraper, because this is an I-beam sitting on top of a plate or a bottom structure. Okay, and then usually, typically, you'd have bolt patterns here. So this is a lot like a column support system. Okay, fillet weld doesn't give us the size. Weld all the way around it. So we weld around the entire thing. Something that's really important when we're out there to know, welding-wise, is you never start and stop here in the middle. or I'm sorry, in the corners. You always want to start and stop, go from here, around, stop here. Try to wrap around your corners. You can on an outside corner like this, you can start and stop here because there's easy access. But you never want to stop on the inside of the corner because you're taking a chance of getting slag trapped in that corner and not being able to get it back out, okay? Groove welds. There are 7 types of groove welds and symbols to represent them. Square, V, bevel, U, J, flare V, and flare bevel. Right there. Those are the 7 welds that we're going to do. Okay? So these are for groove weld specific. I'll explain here in a minute the rest. Okay, so if you notice here on the right hand column, we're to combine 60-degree bevel. We're on the arrow side. Do not be confused. We're on the bottom of the weld. Doesn't mean we're down here. We're where the arrow is pointing. The other side would be down here now. Okay? So 60-degree bevel. The 0 in the middle. That's your root opening. So there's no root opening. That means that they're butted up together nice and snug. There's not a gap there, okay? 3/8 of an inch. Look at the first 2. So there's 1 in parentheses. The first one is 3/8 of an inch. If there's 2 of them here, the first one on your left is going to be the depth of prep. Okay? So this is how deep you cut the groove and prepare the piece. Now your second one, that's your actual weld size. So you're expected to get 1/8 of an inch penetration here when welding. Okay? So groove prep, weld size, V groove, arrow side, 60-degree included bevel or groove angle, 0 root opening. Now there are a lot of times that you may not see. You may only be given the weld size. It's not always going to be in parentheses. If there's only one number here, okay, that means that it's the weld size. More than likely it's the same distance as the groove prep as well. So it's usually a complete joint penetration. Excuse me. Double V groove weld on a butt joint. Okay, so look here at the bottom right. 60-degree, so first things first. This is a whole lot of stuff, right? Just start one piece at a time. Arrow side, pointing here. We want to be 3/8 of an inch deep. 3/8 of an inch weld size. It's a V groove with an 1/8 of an inch root opening. 45 degrees. Exact same thing we have here. Okay? Other side of the weld. 60 degrees, so it's wider. The groove angle is bigger. Part of the reason that is because we are going deeper. Okay?